Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the museum show and tell show. My name is Nicole. I'm from the Penetanguishene Museum, and I'm here with Genevieve from the Huronia Museum.
Hello, hello.
And today it is St. Patrick's Day, and so because it's St. Patrick's Day, when we're viewing this, we wanted to do something that related to Ireland or Irish settlers or something of the Irish theme. So because I challenged Genevieve, I can go first. So for my artifact, I went with a couple of pictures, and this is the first thing I thought of when I thought of Irish settlers. It might be a bit of a stretch, but they are from Irish descendants. So I'm talking about the Mcnamara Brothers, and they were actually three hockey players. And they were born in Penetanguishene, and their grandparents were actually from Ireland. They were from the county of Kilkenny, and they came to this area in the 1840s. And George, Harold, and Howard were three brothers that were very well known in the hockey world for being really great hockey players. And so this picture here is Harold, the middle son, and this is Howard, the younger son, and their older brother, George. The three of them moved to actually Sault Ste. Marie around 1903. So George was born in 1886. Harold was born in 1889, and Howard was born in 1890. So the youngest of them was around 12 when they moved up to Sault Ste. Marie, and that's where they really started their career. And they were very good, and they actually were playing for Toronto in the many different names that they had before they were the Toronto Maple Leafs and before the NHL. They started off with the Tecumseh, and then it went to the Blue Jackets, and it was also the Shamrocks. So that's another sort of Irish part here. But George, being the oldest, he was part of the Toronto Blue Jackets, who won in 1914 the Stanley Cup. So he's actually right up here.
Wow.
I think he was 6'1" and 220 pounds, which is quite large for the time. And yeah, so he won the Stanley Cup in 1914. And then when the war broke out, the First World War, him and the youngest brother, Howard, they actually joined the battalion. There was like a specific hockey battalion that was part of World War I, and they joined that, and they sort of played hockey for a little bit until they were called to service and action. And so he went out to do that. After, in around 1917 is when the NHL started. And after the NHL started, Howard, after he was in the 228th Battalion, he went to play for the Montreal Canadiens, and he won the Stanley Cup in 1919 after the war. Wow. As this is when it was part of the NHL, and so he is right there. And we actually, in this, we actually have another Penetanguishene player on this team, the bottom row, Bert Corbo, who's right here.
There you go.
So, like, could you imagine, like, this is your Stanley Cup team in 1919, and could you imagine you're playing and you find out that there's two kids from the same small little town on this team. And so that's the fact that there's only 6 teams, that played, the original 6, and the fact that all 3 of these brothers from Penetanguishene played. Harold also played for Stanley Cup, And I don't think he played in the actual Stanley Cup games, but he played for the Montreal Canadiens when they're playing for the Stanley Cup. And George McNamara, the oldest, because he had most of his career before the war and was really played for the Toronto team. And he was one of the best there and helped them win a Stanley Cup. He's part of the Hockey Hall of Fame in 1958, but the three brothers are all part of the Penetanguishene Hockey Hall of Fame, and they were inducted the first year in 1987. So that's kind of my my thing here, you know, my artifact for Ireland, which is the Mcnamara Brothers. Two of them, George and Howard, were the two that fought together, or they played together in Toronto, and they also went off to the war together, and they were called the Dynamite Duo, you know, the Dynamite Twins sometimes, because they were so tough. And so yeah, that's my artifact for today.
Awesome. Well, I am headed in a completely different direction. I'm going to talk about something called Irish crochet lace. And it is a method for reproducing something that looks like lace, which was very, very popular at the time that it was, I guess, developed. And the reason it was called Irish lace or Irish crochet lace is because it was invented. There's two different origin stories for it. Some people say that it was invented in an Ursuline convent. It had been brought over from France, and others say that it was developed by a woman in Ireland who figured out how to use crochet to imitate lace. In either case, it was a godsend. It was used, I guess, as part of the famine relief schemes in the mid-19th century during the Irish potato famines. And it really did a lot to help support families and communities. So it was about 1845. A lot of people think that it was invented or developed, and it started to spread. So by about 1851, there were about 16,000 women involved in this type of needlework, I guess you could call it. This it was a cottage industry. So the women would be provided with the materials, and they would create the objects. What's interesting about it is I've got a piece of regular old crochet here, and generally crochet, I don't crochet myself, but my daughter does, and I've seen her do it, is create, I guess, lines of fabric, or you can crochet in a round. So you start off with a small area and you move out from there to create patterns and objects. This is a tablecloth. But Irish crochet is a little bit different. And you start off with crocheted motifs like this flower. It's just made with the finest of threads, or something like this. And from there, you baste or pin these motifs. A lot of times you've got vines and flowers, grape leaves, that are built up to create sort of three-dimensional objects. You baste or stitch those onto a cloth backing, and you then tie those motifs together using straight lines of other crochet to create something like this. It's really maybe hard to see. So you can see right here is I don't know if you can see it very well. Maybe if I hold, there we go. You can see it better there. So you've got webbing joining these various motifs. This is a collar I know we have other examples in the collection, some of which were actually made in Ireland and purchased in the early 20th century by local visitors to Ireland. These ones were made locally. So it did start in Ireland, but within a few years, there were books that were being published. So it really quickly spread. And the interesting thing about this is that you could be skilled at making these, and somebody else would then be handed off the little motifs that you made to create larger pieces like this. They do the filling in, I guess. And it is actually a really kind of quick in a way to imitate lace. So a 7-inch piece of lace, I've read somewhere, might take about 200 hours with bobbins and pins to create, whereas crocheting a similar piece of Irish crochet lace could be done in about 20 hours. So it was wildly popular. These pieces were sold across Europe, and in that way, a lot of Irish families and communities were able to, I guess, survive those really dark years during the potato famine. Yeah, so this is Irish crochet lace.
Neat. And can you figure out around the time period of that specific one, or?
This is probably, actually, do you know what? This was given to us by Marg Robinson, who was a descendant, of the Beck family. So it might have been something purchased or made by her mom or one of her aunts. So Mary Beck, for any of you that are familiar with that family. So generally, though, the popularity waned by World War I, and it really went out of favor after that, especially when commercial laces came to be made. Although I think it was about in the 1990s that an Irish woman happened to run into an older woman in her community who still continued to make it, and she learned from her, and now the procedures or the processes are being picked up by women around the world. Yeah, it's just a lovely tradition, and it's a really interesting because it's of the 3-dimensional aspect to it that's really different than a lot of laces that you get. So Irish crochet lace.
That's really neat, and yes, very different than what I chose.
Very different sphere of life. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot to Irish history than just St. Patrick's Day with drinking green beer, right? So and a lot of our small little communities were founded by a lot of Irish settlers, especially because of the potato famine. A lot of people, a lot of Irish settlers came during that time.
They did. Sometimes they'd settle, further east, southeast of here, and then they'd often, slowly filter up to this area. So as a matter of fact, I was going to bring something in today. We did have an Irish family. We did have 2 families in the area. One was with the last name Irish, and another with the last name Ireland. So there you go.
Neat. All right, so what is our theme for next week?
Well, right now we're in the middle of March. The end of March is fast approaching, when traditionally the shipping season would begin. So how about we bring in something that's related to ships or shipping or boat manufacturers or captains even. So anyone or anything related to shipping.
Okay, sounds good.
Our local economy. Yeah.
I'm sure you have a lot to choose from for that one.
In that.
You know what? Boat building too was very popular in our area for a very long time too, right?
Yeah, that family, they had boats. They built a few for their own use. So yeah.
And grew boats, right? Yeah.
That's right. And biking. Yeah.
All right. So I guess we'll see you again next week then. Okay.
All right. Goodbye, everyone. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the rest of your March break.
Yes.